Hey, leader, and welcome to another episode of the L3 Leadership Podcast, where we're passionate about helping you reach your maximum potential and to amplify your leadership impact. I'm your host, Doug Smith, and we recorded this episode live from the Northway Christian Community Podcast Studio. In today's episode, you're going to hear my good friend and pastor of Northway Christian Community, Dave D'Angelo, having a conversation with me for his podcast, the 167 Podcast. Highly recommend that you check that out. And we talk about so many different things in this podcast. A few of the highlights where we go into really good detail on what Laura and I's system is for having family team meetings on a weekly basis. We talk about what generosity looks like to our family and how we can deal with the homeless crisis in America. It was a wide-ranging conversation, and Dave and I go back and forth since we know each other really well. I loved this conversation, and I think you will too. So with that being said, let's dive right in.
Well, hey, everybody, welcome back to the 167 Podcast, where we talk about relationships, we talk about our parenting, and of course, we talk about work, all those things we do for the 167 hours where we're not in church. Today, I'm super excited for our guest, a good friend of mine, and I'm going to say this, a podcast mentor of mine. Doug's the podcasting pro. So everybody, this is Doug Smith from a couple of different organizations. So Doug, why don't you give a little bit of a bio, a little bit of background, smile big, and what's it like being on the other side of the table here?
Yeah, I'm getting used to it. Yeah, I've been doing this a little bit more, but it's great to be with you. Okay. Pastor Dave. Or do you want me to call you Dave for this?
Neighbor Dave. How about Neighbor Dave? We're neighbors, so yeah.
Yeah, so Neighbor Dave, it's great to be with you.
Yeah.
So we've been friends for a while. I work at Light of Life Rescue Mission, the nonprofit serving the homeless on the north side.
What's your role there?
Yeah, I've been there for 14 years, which is
14.
Yeah, it's
that's
pretty
a long.
wild.
That's a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
So, and I currently serve as the assistant executive director. So basically, oversee the day-to-day operations of the mission. I spent most of my time at the mission in those 14 years in development. So a lot of fundraising experience. And
so development is a code word for
fundraising,
giving, generosity, isn't it?
Yes.
That's part of the tie-in for Doug today. This past weekend at Northway, the pastor preached on generosity. So there's a cool natural tie-in. You said that because you had to.
Neighbor Dave preached a good message.
Yeah, that's right. So 14 years, Light of Life, and tell a little bit about the mission of Light of Life and what you guys do. I think a lot of people are familiar, but
yeah, we've been on the north side for over 70 years, and we've been serving men, women, and children in our city who are experiencing homelessness. And for us, we're a faith-based organization, so we believe Christ is the answer, and He is the foundation of everything that we do, which is wonderful. And then also we have a continuum of care, which for us just means wherever someone is in their journey of experiencing homelessness, we want to have a next step for them. So we have street outreach teams, we have an emergency shelter, we have long-term recovery programs, and ultimately graduate people to where they're back out and have housing, employment, and a lot of other things. We can certainly dive into any of those, but generally, and Northway has been a huge supporter for many, many years of Light of Life. So thank you to everyone listening to this as well for your support.
Northway's a generous church. So yeah. So you guys serve, you clothe, you feed, you help recover, you house. When it comes to homelessness right here in Pittsburgh. Awesome, amazing heartbeat ministry here and needed in our city. Doug, so let me just ask this. I'm curious. We're going to go a lot of different places today. We are going to talk about the 167 areas. We are going to talk about generosity in marriage. But I first thought, I don't think a lot of people, I think people know what homelessness is, but they don't really know what homelessness is. What do you feel like is some of the misunderstandings or the myths about homelessness that most people sort of hold?
Yeah, I think the number one myth is typically people see someone out on the street, they're holding a sign begging for money, and their assumption is, oh, that person made bad decisions, and that's why they're there. It's their fault. They're a bum. They're lazy.
They could just choose to get out of this. They could work harder. And
And the reality is, homelessness is a really, really complex issue. And the illustration we always use at the mission is, if you look at homelessness as a whole, we compare it to Niagara Falls. So if you ever looked at a waterfall.
Wait a second. You compared homelessness to Niagara. I'm like on the edge of my seat. So I told you I'm going to interrupt you here. This is like interaction. Okay, go. I'm interested.
If you look at the problem of homelessness is this waterfall that's flowing with all of this power, and you asked, how could we ever stop the waterfall from going over the edge? You'd say it's impossible. But in the 1800s, when Niagara Falls actually did stop flowing, and it's because upstream, all of the tributaries that were leading into the water that led to the waterfall froze. And so in homelessness, if you go upstream from those experiencing homelessness, you're going to find many tributaries and reasons for people becoming homeless. And so examples of that are, you have the opioid epidemic. So a few years ago, I think it was 2022, we had over 100,000 opioid deaths in the U.S., set a record, which is just devastating.
Right.
You know, drugs are killing people everywhere. You have a lack of affordable housing. And just in Allegheny County, where we live, for every 100 families looking for affordable housing, there's only 37 units available. And so...
Say that one again.
Yeah.
By the way, that noise was our helicopter landing on the roof. Your ride is here, Doug.
Yeah, thank you.
Just kidding. The HVAC is going to turn off here in a second. But say that again. Say the stat that you just said, because that was like, really?
Yeah, in Allegheny County, for every 100 families looking for affordable housing, there's only 37 units available.
So it's a negative ratio of available. It's an unavailable ratio.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and even if people have housing lined up, often they can't get there for 2 or 3 months. And if they don't have any money to actually pay for somewhere to stay, they find themselves out on the street with nowhere to go, or staying at a shelter like Light of Life.
Right.
And then you have the mental health crisis, and there's so many, even since COVID, now that there's all these different things in the drugs like fentanyl, we're seeing mental health issues that we've never seen before. And to be honest, I don't know who is equipped to really deal with them. So we're all kind of in this position of figuring out, how do we deal with the mental health crisis, food insecurity. I could keep going, but...
So lots of streams, tributaries.
Lots of streams, and those are...
That's a great picture,
issues.
by the way.
Yeah, and I think we've actually done this. If you would go out on a street outreach with our outreach team, and you went to an encampment that had 10 tents and met with all the individuals living there, you wouldn't just find one solution that's required and just say, hey, everyone, come on into Light of Life and we'll solve all of your problems. Every single one of those individuals has a unique, complex reason for what they're going through and complex solutions to what's actually required. And so it's just a really, really complex issue. And I think if people realize that, they'd have a much bigger heart for those we serve.
Wow. And you don't realize that from a distance, do you?
No, absolutely not.
You got to get hands and feet. You got to get it on the ground. You got to get near. Got to get, as our buddy Matt Geppert said, you got to actually have dust on your feet before you shake something off, you know?
Transform visions into results. What does that mean? We often work with companies who are doing amazing things that have incredible products and services, but fail to communicate what they do properly and market themselves effectively. We passionately serve entrepreneurs, business leaders, and visionaries to see what's in their heart and their visions for the future come to life. We do that by providing fractional marketing leadership and creative execution all in one. That's what we call VCMO. With VCMO, you get a marketing director and a team of creative professionals to help execute all of your marketing needs, all for one monthly cost. How do we do all this? We do it 3 ways. Number 1, we get your vision. We get excited about your mission and your trajectory as a company and come alongside to see you go further, faster. 2, we have a team of talented strategists and creatives to get all of the work done. And 3, we flat out work freaking hard for you and your company. Reach out today. Let's start a conversation.
Yeah, and in Pittsburgh, you know, Fred Rogers is famous, but he said there isn't a
Wait,
person...
who's that? Who is... Just kidding.
Mr.
Yeah.
Rogers.
Yeah.
He has a quote that I love. He said, there isn't a person that you couldn't learn to love if you just learned their story. And talking about proximity, that's what I love about being at Light of Life. When you actually sit down and have a conversation and get to know the men and women that we serve, you recognize they're just like you and I. Yeah. And, you know, if we had, I always say, in fact, you know, I don't know if we want to go into this. I have a family member, my younger sister, who ended up battling an addiction with heroin, and she ended up homeless twice. And actually was in our program 3 different times. And if you would have ever told me that I would know someone, let alone a family member that would need our services, I would have never believed you.
Right.
But through my sister and the people I've come to know, it's, all of us are 1 or 2 decisions away from being in the same position or the same circumstance.
Yeah, it's nearer than we think. Yeah. It's closer to our lives, not just in terms of people we might know or our circles of influence. But yeah, I agree with you. I think that's, hey, so how do we be generous towards Light of Life? What we go to the website, phenomenal mission, and that's why would I not plug this? Like, the call to be generous is to be rich towards God. So
Oh, surprisingly, so I think there's lots of ways to be generous. And first, I would actually say generosity of time, if you have it. Not everyone is in a season of life where they have the time. Right. But, you know, our number one goal is come and see. If you've never been to the mission, if you've never served a meal, come down and serve a meal. Get to know and talk to someone and actually experience and feel it, because that's what really starts changing and shaping your heart. Yeah. There's lots of ways to get involved volunteering. And then on the financial end, again, at a minimum, it costs $2.58 to provide one meal for someone in need.
2.58.
Yeah, so it doesn't cost a lot.
For one meal.
For one meal. So, whether you can do that or, some people have capacity to give a lot more than that. We have a pretty large budget and are doing a lot of great things in the city. We could use all the help we can get.
Awesome. So north side, look for the big cross up on top of that building.
That's right.
Right? Sort of down by the stadiums-ish. Yeah. And you have a second location over by CCAC?
By CCAC.
Is that right? We've met there.
Yeah.
All in that area where I still get turned around because I'm the most directionally challenged person. Thank God for GPSs. Are you good with directions? I'm not.
No.
Okay. I remember the days of MapQuest when I first started working. I'm so thankful for a screen and a GPS. I don't know north, south, east, and west. It's not my strength.
I know you're not on social a lot, but there was this video some guy made, and he said, parents are so worried about distractions with the iPhone and texting and all these things. And then he said, this was us in the 90s. And he had he had one of those CD pouches looking for what CD to put in. And then he was printing out his MapQuest directions.
Yeah, we had a big atlas in the back of our car growing up. I remember I used to read it when I was bored or whatever driving.
You're a little bit older than me, so I don't know the whole atlas.
Yeah, just a little bit. So, okay, Light of Life, right? And then you also do you have a podcast. Like, how many episodes in L3 podcast? Just tell us about that a little bit. So I'm interviewing the master right now, the pro's pro.
Yeah, I don't know about that, but started a podcast in 2012.
I'm going to get you to laugh at some point.
I don't understand sarcasm. You know this about me. He's actually setting me up. Unfortunately, God designed me in a way that I'm very sarcastic. When people are sarcastic with me, I always take it literally. It could be an insecurity.
I'm still debating if I believe you when you say that, but nonetheless, I'm kidding. I believe
think I need more therapy.
Yeah. But L3 leadership.
Yeah. Started a podcast in 2012.
Wow.
With my father-in-law. It was my first interview, and now we're 420 episodes in with a focus on leadership. It's been a lot of fun. I always say I was
of all your guests, all the potential guests in this world, you asked your father-in-law, was that before you were married to Laura, or were you about to be engaged? Was this a strategic?
I think it was a few months before we got married.
Okay.
No, it wasn't strategic. Yeah. It took me 10 years to grow into the man I needed to be to marry Laura. A podcast interview wouldn't have gotten me by. Yeah.
So you got the L3 thing. You've interviewed guests. Here's what I love about Doug, as you're getting to know Doug just a little bit. Tenacious. You really believe you can get time with someone if you ask and if you pursue it. And the guests that you've had on your podcast, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's on par with any sort of other podcast you hear nationally. So if you're looking for leadership development, the L3 podcast is wonderful. You've done this. I don't think I've been a guest on the podcast yet.
It's on my to-do list to schedule that today, right after this. And I'm not just saying that.
I beat you to it, Doug. I beat you to it.
I think I told you this.
I'm guilting you into this.
On a text thread.
Well, we see who won the race.
As long as we can use the studio. I've been podcasting for a while, but I'm nowhere. Yeah.
Well, I'll pray about that for Doug. We'll see in time. Okay, so tell us a little bit about your family too. I mentioned Laura, and tell us about your crew. Tell us about the Smiths.
Married my high school sweetheart, Laura. I kind of alluded to it just a second ago, but long journey to get married. Married way out of my league, hit a home run. God's so graceful and merciful to me. But we've been married now for 13 years, and so we have 5 kids. We just had our 5th, Luke Kennedy, in January.
Congrats!
Yeah, if you would have ever told us we'd have 5 kids when we got married, I would have never believed you. But
you had a basketball team, 5 kids. Yeah, that's it. So you got Liv, Soph, I'm starting. Luke is at the end. Yep. Caleb, and who am I forgetting here? It's a biblical name. Joshua?
James.
Close, I knew it was a J. Oh, James. So you got the 5, you got the crew of 5. So we're neighbors. We live together out in the Cranberry Mars area, live near each other. And one of my favorite things is when it's warm, we haven't seen each other for a while, is walks, in the evening, hanging out with you guys. And you've shared some of your story, and so we're married. Brooke and I married almost, we're coming up on 2002, so 23 years. This June will be 23 years. Wow. So from moment of honesty, when it comes to the sermon we talked about, generosity, is money ever a challenge in marriage?
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if it's not it's one of the leading causes of divorce. And so, it's a huge challenge. And I think you need to get this right. I'm a huge Dave Ramsey fan. I don't know if you've been through Financial Peace or Encourage It, but that was really a game changer for us to lay a foundation.
Did you do all the steps? Are you like a Dave Ramsey, to a T?
Yeah. I'm a little bit loose with it, but in
to
general,
a lowercase t, maybe not a capital T.
Yeah. I'm not a great rule follower, but in general, the baby steps they're short, they're simple.
Yeah.
My father-in-law, who before he was my father-in-law, actually paid for me to go through financial peace, probably as part of my maturing process.
That was an investment in his daughter's future and like insurance against his future. I think that's what that was.
Oh, it's paid off. I'm sure he's very, very grateful. I think the ROI on that was huge.
So you feel like the Ramsey material helped you and Laura get on the same page. Do you ever have, is there anything with Dave Ramsey's material that you're like, I don't know if I agree with that?
No, I tend to just, it's good to go with it. To be honest, we do use the credit card. So so where we've gone to is
confession. This is a safe place. You use a credit card.
We use credit cards, but we pay them off every month.
It's like a charge card.
Yes, but the argument that I can't beat with Dave, so you could argue it's for the points, which we do take advantage of the points.
Yeah, but we do too. We're the same page. Yeah.
But his argument that I haven't listened to, but I can't beat is if you are using a credit card, even if you do all those things and pay it all off, you're still supporting an organization that's keeping millions of people enslaved in debt. And I can't argue that, and I wrestle with that ethically, to be honest with you.
So I never think about that.
Yeah. And in general, I'm benefiting off of other people's bondage. And now that I'm saying that live on camera, I'm like, oh man,
this got dark. This just got deep.
But it's for real. It's like
I never thought about that.
I might need to make changes.
I was thinking about the fee they charge businesses because sometimes it's exorbitant, 3%. Could it be 2% or whatever that is? But you're even saying the whole industry, the whole credit card industry is built on, what did you say? In danger or enslavement?
They're keeping people in bondage, and they're getting a 3 to 5% fee for the businesses, but they're charging those individuals 25 to 30% on their debt, which is almost criminal, probably. So
I didn't think we were going to go there. So but that is, man, that's something to wrestle through.
Should we do it right here? Pull out a pair of scissors and cut up our credit cards.
Oh, man. Dave Ramsey.
We might need to, yeah. But I love Dave, yeah.
Yeah, he is. He's definitely jarring in his approach to stuff. I love the way he. I have an uncle who grew up in West Virginia. Dave's Tennessee, right? And but my uncle always has these. I call them his West Virginia one-liners. They're this way of saying something like, I never thought, but why? That makes a point.
Wow. Do any come to mind for you?
Putting lipstick on a pig. Like when you have, like if you're making an excuse in your life and you're trying to like really sell it, he's like, you're just putting lipstick on a pig.
That's awesome.
Like just tell the truth. You made a bad decision. Like that sort of a deal. That's Dave Ramsey. He's kind of got that like tough love, no nonsense kind of approach. What do you think though about Dave? I wasn't even thinking about going here, but I've had a point where I've always wondered, I feel like generosity is always buried in Dave's steps.
Yeah.
Like, cause I don't know that it's buried biblically.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true. Yeah.
What do you any thoughts about that?
As far as the steps,
you're the disciple of Dave Ramsey. I'm just kidding.
He says if you live like no one else, you can give like no one else. But right. I do know he encourages people to tithe, which is where I'd encourage people to start their generosity with.
Yeah.
So I know he encourages it. It's not part of the steps, but I think it's where everyone needs to start. And I certainly think he's 100% an advocate of that.
Yeah.
So that's huge. But his steps are really to get people into a place financially where they can be more generous. Be out of bondage and be financially free so they can focus on what God's called them to do. And that's what I love about him.
Like, don't live above your means. That's one of the biggest things he talks about. And the more you listen to that, the more you're like, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, it is wisdom. It will create freedom in my life. So back to the whole differences, because money is a challenging point. Brooke and I, honestly, we haven't had a lot of like disagreements or dust ups. If we do, sometimes it's about spending. Or saving. How would you say you and Laura are on the like spend save continuum? Where do each of you? If Laura doesn't mind you disclosing this.
No. She knows. I'm an open book. I just say whatever. So she's used to that.
She is.
We've been together for 20 years. As far as spending and saving, so Patrick Bet David has this great quote. He said, "You're one system away from changing your life." So the way
who was the guy that said that?
Patrick Bet David is his name. He's a little political, so take that for what it's worth. But he has a lot of business wisdom. He built an insurance company.
The podcast is not necessarily endorsing all the ideas.
Yeah, I'm not endorsing his podcast necessarily, but But you're one system away from changing your life, and I would say that's how Laura and I operate in general. Like, we give us a good system. So this is why we like Dave so much. Hey, give us the system. We're going to follow it to a T.
Yeah.
Great. And so we got to a point with Dave where we felt like we had the baby steps, like, okay, we got this. Is there more to that? So we got in a financial advisor. And with him...
Do you remember those baby steps? I'll get back to the financial advisor.
Oh, sure. I can walk them through.
Yeah,
so
take me through those.
Step one is to have a $1,000 emergency fund. And that's certainly not enough for all the emergencies you would need, but it's something to start if something happens.
It's a really good start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Step two is to get completely debt-free except for the house. And so he has a whole debt snowball approach to how he helps people get out of debt.
Pay off the smallest one first, then keep that payment like a snowball, get it going towards bigger debts. Yeah. Okay.
So that's great. Step three is a 3 to 6 month emergency fund for what you would need. And then he has what he would call baby step 3B. If you're in a season of life where you're saving for a house or you would like to buy a house, that's where you would save that additional money for a down payment. If you already have a house, you would go to step 4, which is saving 15% of your income to retirement. And he has a whole process for, if you should invest Roth first, match first, et cetera.
It's all available online. You can find all this stuff.
5 is fund your kids' college. So your 529s, whatever that looks like for you and your family. And then step 6 is to pay off your mortgage completely as fast as possible with what's left. And so some people, financial advisors always argue that. But then baby step 7 is basically max everything out and live like no one else and give like no one else.
Give like no one else.
Which is beautiful.
Yeah. So back to the money. You guys met with a financial advisor and you have a system.
Yeah.
Where are you and Laura at? Are you more spend or save? Are you both savers? Like what? How does that work?
Yeah, Laura basically lets me do a lot of that because I have the systems in place. So she'll call me out if there's anything that we think is like out of control. I'm definitely a spender. She's definitely a saver.
Okay.
But again, it's like that's why we have systems. So it's like, okay, we know we're putting this. We know exactly where all of our money's going. So we're doing this for retirement. Here's what we're doing for our 529s. Here's what we're doing with extra projects and things that we want to do around the house. So and we'll get into this, but we have a weekly family team meeting every week.
Let's go there. This is another system. Right.
Another system.
And let me just pause as you think about the system and you talk about that. You're probably wondering like, so what does this have to do with this? This is like practical advice. When you think about generosity, typically one spouse wants to be more generous. The other spouse is like, we can't afford to be generous. And like, how do we get there? Doug and Laura have a system that I have always thought, wow, that's pretty impressive with discipline. That can free us up from some of the battles that marriages experience when it comes to differing views about money. So take us through that system.
Yeah, and I'll just preface this because you might be listening to this and saying, well, I'm not a systems and process person. And I would tell you, neither am I, even though I just said how much I love systems and processes.
You have learned to love systems.
Yes.
You're not by nature a just systematic, disciplined, regimented person, but you've seen the value of them over time.
You got it. So I love the outcome of having a system in place and following it.
Okay.
So Laura and I got connected with this ministry called Family Teams. It's familyteams.org, I think, or .com. But yeah, so they introduced us this whole idea of family rhythms, and one of them is to have a weekly family team meeting. Eventually, you're supposed to include the kids and everything. Our kids were a little young. We're starting to do that, but we meet every Saturday. We call it a family team meeting, and I never look forward to it. Every Saturday morning, like clockwork, I could show you our text chain. I get an email or a text from Laura at 6:30 a.m. after she has her devotion saying, "Here's the agenda for the family team meeting."
So wait a second. Laura sets an agenda
for sure
for a Saturday meeting with you and her.
Yep. Here's everything we need to cover. Now, Laura loves detail. So again, I am not a detail person. I could go a month and not, but if you're married to someone detail oriented, Laura would rather literally have a family team meeting where she's getting all the information and knowing what we're doing in our family than to go on a date and go to a nice steakhouse.
So that's almost and Gary Chapman would be upset with me, but that's like a love language of hers.
Yeah.
Is honoring her, or Ephesians 5, mutual submission, submitting to her need for details.
Yes.
Even though you're not a detail guy.
Yeah. And again, I hate it. I always find myself dragging myself.
So give me some example. What's on the agenda?
The agenda is not very, very complicated. My friend texted me the other day. The trash.
The garbage.
No, it's always weekend. So, hey, what are we doing? Because it's on a Saturday. What's going on this weekend? Then we look over the week. So, hey, for us specifically, let's look over every day. Now, again, both of us work. We have kids.
You have full
going
calendars.
Different places, full calendars. So, hey, who's dropping the kids this day? Hey, do we need help? Do we need someone, what's going on at night? So we go over the whole calendar. Then we'll go over finances. So, hey, what
go over finances every week?
Yes. But again,
so we would never run our businesses without looking at finances. We look at the church finances all the time.
Yeah.
Right. It's a stewardship. It's a responsibility. Every person that's listening who runs a business or is a part of a department looks at their but sometimes in our households, it's been months before we actually looked.
Yeah.
You look at them every single week.
Every week. And again, we're not like this detailed budget, like line on line.
But you're on it.
We look at overall expenses categories. Where are we?
Yeah.
What do we need to do? Are we on track for our goals? Are we following the systems?
Yeah.
So we have that conversation. And I would just encourage spouses, you may say, well, hey, my husband's really good with finances. I just trust him all with that. But hey, let him bring you into the journey. You're coming to that journey together. He doesn't have to go into a detailed analysis of every budget line, but you should, and this is why I love Ramsey, it should be super simple. Like, hey, in general, here's how we're doing financially, or here's things that, we're aiming for. Here are some concerns I had. Hey, you spent this weekend. So we go over finances in the family team meeting, and then basically it's just troubleshooting whatever issue. So we use a system at Light of Life called EOS, and we use the system called
Traction.
IDSing.
Right, yeah.
So it's identifying, discussing, and solving issues. So basically,
do you and Laura IDS things?
Yeah.
You say that phrase?
I do. She doesn't. She's not as into the whole thing. She's just like, yeah, Laura's a problem solver.
You need to film one of these meetings. I think this would be like phenomenal.
Jordan, you want to come over? We can make it in Northway.
I don't think he wants to.
Yeah. But yeah, and so
Jordan, do you have an IDS meeting every week? He's giving us thumbs down, man. Oh no.
Kelly, do you want him to have one every week?
Did she say yes?
Do thumbs up. See?
So there's the heart.
It's coming.
There's the heart of the issue, right?
Yeah.
It's like we all usually there's one spouse who've used it one way and another spouse who've used it another way. And this is one of these things that has actually helped you, even though you're different.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
What was IDSing again? I started
identifying, discussing, and solving issues.
Okay.
So, hey, we have this coming up, and we need help with this. So let's talk through this. Or hey, one of our kids is wrestling with this. We need to talk through how we're going to deal with that. And then we basically just wrap up on the marriage side. And this has been really helpful. I got this from Jeannie Mayo. We do it. We call it 3 to 1. So we make each other say 3 specific things in the last week that we saw each other do, and it has to be specific, that we loved the person doing. So, hey, Laura. This week I saw you, we just had a 5th baby. Hey, Laura, I see you daily and all the sacrifices you're making to make sure that our newborn is fed, in addition to everything else we have going on. Wow. Thank you so much for that. When I said that to her last week, just being open and honest, she teared up, and just feeling seen about something specific she was doing was a game changer.
And doesn't it matter more when it comes from your spouse?
Yes.
Like the one who's closest to you is also the one who can hurt you the most and heal you as well.
Yeah.
Faithful are the wounds of a friend. I think they're even more from a spouse in a lot of ways. I'm not adding to the scriptures, but
yeah,
that's such a powerful example. So 3. What do you call that part?
3 to 1.
I feel like you have a name for everything in these meetings. But like a 3 to 1.
We can create a template for you for the listeners.
I think a template would be wonderful. We could put it maybe in the show notes or something like that.
But yeah, 3 to 1. And I would just say, to your point, if that wasn't a part of our agenda, I probably wouldn't have said that.
It doesn't come natural to us.
I would think it, yeah.
Right?
Maybe it would come on a date night of like, hey, and maybe, we try to do a date night once a month consistently with the season that we're in, but maybe that would come out. But every week now, I'm telling her 3 encouraging things. And then, Kelly will probably love this, then the one thing is, what's one thing I did that annoyed the crap out of you that you wanted to kill me? So last week, I'll tell a funny story. Last week, so
wait, that's the question we fear getting an answer to.
Yes.
And what I hear you saying is you push through and ask it so that she can't answer it.
Oh, yes. So here's why. Imagine, right? I'm all about personal growth and development.
Yeah.
Imagine if every week you had one piece of coaching advice to make your marriage better.
Yeah.
That's this opportunity. My wife has an opportunity every week to tell me one thing I can do to make our marriage better.
Are there ground rules? Like, it's not a critical thing. It's a set in love.
No, Laura and I are very.
I might advise you to have some ground rules just for your future. I'm just kidding.
We're pretty blunt and direct.
You guys are. Yeah.
So Laura just wants to hear it as is. I probably am the one that like needs a little softer, but I'm used to Laura's directness. So
put some icing on that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But last week, and this wasn't like a huge change I need to make, but I'm learning about like there was all this. We had pans that we've had, pots and pans since we got married, and they were probably toxic because they have all this chemicals in it. So I'm like, if I'm all or nothing. So when I find out something new I got to do, I'm like, yeah, let's go.
In. Yeah.
So I'm like, Laura, we need to get new pots and pans that are non-toxic, blah, blah, blah. And as soon as I feel empowered to do something, I go all in. So she said, yeah, go ahead. You can do it. So I bought all these pots and pans.
You're ordering Hexclad stuff from Gordon Ramsay. Is that right?
All clad, because Hexclad still has a form of the chemical in, according to my research on AI.
Okay.
Sorry, Gordon Ramsay or whatever your name is.
Yeah.
We went with All
Sorry to
Clad.
people who are against AI as well. Yeah.
Love AI. All Clad is local here. I found out they're in Cannonsburg, so
Really?
supporting the Berg.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Sarah's
so-
Candy and All Clad.
All Clad, stainless
Cannonsburg.
steel.
It's awesome.
Yeah, so I bought them, which is great.
Okay.
But at the same time, I was so excited.
Those are not inexpensive.
No.
Okay.
They were like
no,
a couple
no.
$5.
Yeah, okay.
But I was so excited to get rid of the old pans, I just threw them away without waiting for the new pans to arrive. So didn't think anything of it. And I get a text from Laura. I'm in a meeting with my boss on Thursday, and I see a mad emoji face, and she said, "Did you really throw away the pots and pans before the new ones came?" I'm like, "Yep, I did that." And yeah, Laura doesn't use the swearing emoji often, and she doesn't swear, but yeah, I got the swearing emoji. Sorry if you have to edit that out, but yeah.
I mean, so that's real life. I understand.
Yeah. So this week was, hey, don't.
This audience doesn't use that emoji, but they are aware of what it is.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
They're perfect.
Yes. So, wow. So she gave you that feedback.
That was the feedback. Don't ever do that again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Were you thinking, don't ever put me in charge of buying pots and pans again?
No. I'm just, I mean, in general,
Okay.
I can be an impulsive person and all or nothing. And so Kelly's worked with me. She knows.
Kelly is Kelly Kepner, who's on our staff team, and Jordan, for everybody wondering, like, who are these people? Jordan Kepner is also on the team as well. So
yeah, if I don't have processed people around me, I'm in trouble.
So this meeting helps facilitate the points of contention many marriages experience, not only with finances, but personalities, responsibilities, even interpersonal frustrations and rubs, like a lack of encouragement.
Yeah.
You're dealing with that. But at the same time, hey, there are sometimes we think we always need outside help to help us know where we need to work. Sometimes we just don't say it in a loving, direct way. A lot of times the feedback is there. We may not be inviting it or setting up an environment that welcomes it, you know? And so this kind of a system, as you've shared this with me before, I always found it really, really fascinating because for Brooke and myself, we function, I do the bills. I manage the finances as far as like paying them. We view our money as our money.
Yes.
It's all ours. And where I have had frustrations isn't when she spends. It's if she spends in an area and doesn't know the overall picture. And what it's always come down to is, well, if I have the overall picture, why am I not sharing it with her? And so a lot of it does come down to, it's not like I'm doing this to get you. It's why don't we just get on the same page?
You got it.
And so a lot of we are now able to be more generous because we're more aligned with where we are financially.
Yeah.
And your system would help surface and present the opportunity for those kind of conversations.
Yeah, I mean, you said the language. At the end of the day, if you really had to call what it is, it's a same page meeting.
Yeah.
Let's make sure we're on the same page about how we're parenting, how we're utilizing and stewarding our money, how we're utilizing our schedule, and how we're pursuing our dream of the family we wanted to create. Yeah.
And the beauty of same page meetings is you can be different people, but still get to the same page.
Yeah.
Because that's marriage.
Everybody listening to this is married to someone different than them.
Yes. I heard someone say, Michael Hyatt, you're a fan of Michael Hyatt,
huge.
right? Michael Hyatt said, I believe God has given us a spouse who's different from us so that we are complemented with the opposite personality, opposite mindset, opposite approach, so that we're so well-rounded, we're completely complemented for anything that we're going to face in life.
Yeah. Have you seen that with Brooke, 23 years?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. She is the generous one. By nature in our family. When it comes to generosity, when I was talking this weekend about, hey, generosity doesn't come automatic for all of us.
Yeah.
I think it comes more natural for some than it does for others, but empowering her, letting her lead, submitting to her has helped us as a family because we're one.
Yeah.
Do we talk about oneness enough?
No.
Like the idea of two different people really joining together in union to be one. Finances is a way to really express that and live into that.
Oh, it's crazy. I listen to Ramsey all the time, and it's crazy how often the question comes up, or the people say like, "Hey, I'm married, but we have two separate bank accounts." And Ramsey, flips a gasket. But it's like you're not one. How could you have separate? You're basically having two separate lives.
Yeah.
You have to be one.
Yeah. So personally, that's the way we operate our household. When we counsel couples being married, and there's a lot. Everyone has had different reasons why we didn't get married till later in life, and we have bills already coming out of these things. So I understand everyone's reasons. I think the one bank account forces unity.
Yeah.
Like no other things.
Yep.
So that's
you can't
what,
hide anything.
You can't hide anything. That's what I endorse, and I think it really pushes you to get onto the same page, and it pushes you to some struggles.
Yeah.
But the struggles are worth it, especially in marriage. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned, and we can jump in. Now I'm going to go into my interview skills, but you were talking about Brooke being generous. I do want to, like, what does generosity look like? And we can talk about this together, but like, what does that look like in your family or to Brooke? Like when you say, wow, she's the generous one, like how does that come out in her?
Yeah. So my first thought is, because I'm the manager, is what's this going to cost, and do we have enough? And Brooke is, they need to be loved. So let's be as generous as we possibly can, even if it hurts us.
Go Brooke.
So she is.
Yeah,
I mean, that's her
amazing.
heart. She is beautiful. And she like when we have Nico's friends from college over, it's not like, hey, let's make sure everyone has a water. She wants there to be like 15 different options for them. Yeah. Well, what if like someone might be gluten-free? Someone might like caffeine-free. Someone might like this. I'm like, okay, so let's talk about this together. But she wants to create an environment that's generous and that people feel loved and that they want to come back to. And I have learned whenever we're about to give a gift, like we have someone is getting married soon that we know, and we're going to put, we call it a boost. That's the Italian
boost.
Handshake. We've talked about that before, haven't we?
Nice.
We're going to put money in there. And I have, like, my first thought is, well, what did we give their brother? Or what did they give us? And Brooks is like, what's God leading us to give them? Or could we do more? Not in a negative way. So what we have learned is, I've just said, like, hey, is there something on your heart?
Yeah.
And really, God is leading me to move more into generosity by trusting the voice that He has given me through my wife.
Yeah.
Through Brooke.
Has that been hard for you? Like, do you always pretty much agree with what Brooke believes God's putting on her heart in general, or has that created tension at all?
Yeah. So sometimes, let's just talk about this. Sometimes we can be generous for impure reasons.
Say more, Dave.
We want to be liked.
Yeah.
Right. I didn't get to talk about this. It was a fourth point in the sermon about sometimes our giving has strings attached to it. It's a string of control. It's a string of esteem, a relationship, or it's a string of preference, right?
Yeah.
And so there are, so I will sometimes ask, like, hey, are we doing this to like look a certain way to them? Wow. Or are we doing this because this is actually what God is leading us to do? And so we navigate that. We certainly take into account our budget, but that's the reality. Yeah. Sometimes we do something to overcome our own insecurities. Like even a good thing, like generosity, can be done for impure motives with strings. So we have very honest conversations around that. We've learned to trust each other. We've learned to push into the issue, because it's better to talk about it and disagree on the front side than have resentment and bitterness on the outside, on the aftermath. So
love that. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Those are deep questions. Those are great questions to ask.
Yeah. Money is something you got to talk about. And I will say this, 9 out of 10 times I lean on her heart with generosity.
Yeah.
Because she's leading me in an area that I'm growing in. And I'm not like stingy.
Yeah.
But at the same time,
no, but you are who you are. Like you said before, that's why you complement each other.
Yeah.
Like you bring out the best for Brooke, for your household, for finances, and she's bringing out the best in you for the kingdom.
I got a system. I pay our bills.
There
and
it is.
And you know what I've done too? Like one other little, this may be a quick tidbit. It has brought freedom to me, because a lot of time in our marriage, I have felt like I do all the bill paying and you don't even know what's going on right now in our finances. Again, my fault.
Yeah.
Tell her.
Yeah. It's
not like she doesn't want to know. But like I've said, I'll do this. I don't know a lot of the stuff she does around our house. You just sort of get entitled and expect it to be done. I've started to communicate to her, here's where we are. And then I also wrote down my systems, because I am thinking, hey, if anything ever happened to me, she needs to know this stuff. Yeah. It's not okay for it to go to heaven in my brain.
And as you've shared that with her, like how has that impacted her?
She feels trusted. She feels empowered. She knows even more of the why. If I'm saying like, hey, we need to wait till next paycheck for this, because she's been brought along in the story, and I'm not just managing it and expecting her to know what's there. So
it's beautiful.
Yeah. So any PSs you want to say? Generosity, money, the IDSs and the full pagers, and I can't believe Laura sends you an actual agenda. I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I would just say, if we're wrapping up on the financial end, I would just encourage people or challenge people to be generous. For us, like the generosity journey, at least as a person of faith, begins with tithing. So giving 10%. Mm-hmm. We started that when we were teenagers. So, I certainly think it's a lot easier to start that when you're a teenager making, $200 a pay versus, a 30 something with a family and all those things. But I do believe it's something that God asks of us. And so I would encourage everyone to do that. And then on the challenge to be generous side, I've always been inspired by Rick Warren, who's a pastor. He did a TED Talk. If you're unfamiliar with him, he wrote a book called The Purpose-Driven Life. It's the second best-selling book next to the Bible. So he did all right. But in his TED Talk, he said, when I wrote The Purpose-Driven Life and all of that influence and money came in, I had to ask myself, okay, God, all this influence is here, all this money is here, what's it for? It's not about me. That's actually how he starts the book. And he said, if it's not about me, then how am I supposed to steward this? And the way that he stewarded his finances is he actually became a reverse tither. So
explain what that is if people don't know what a reverse tither is.
A reverse tither. So Rick Warren gives 90% of his income away and lives off 10%.
Yeah.
And he paid back the church every single dollar the church has ever paid him because he never got into ministry for a paycheck. And I just think that's beautiful. Now, am I ever going to be able to get to 90% and be a reverse tither? Probably not, but I'm not going to limit God. But I would say that gives me a benchmark to shoot for. And so something Laura and I do every year.
Yeah, you don't have to stop at 10%.
You don't have to stop at 10%.
Because God wants to grow us in generosity.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to, we try to challenge ourselves every year and say, how can we be more generous? And usually that's just increasing by a percentage a year. I've had friends, I have a pastor friend in Florida who really challenged me, and he's given away 33% of his income. And he said, man, we got a vision at one point in our giving career where we wanted to be 6-figure givers. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. He's like, it took us a while to get there, but we're there now. And I said, 33%, like that's a lot. And I said, but what about all your financial advisor? And what he said to me, which challenged me because I love my system and I know exactly what numbers I'm aiming for in my system. He said, Doug, a financial advisor is always going to tell you more. And they're always going to make you have way more than you actually need. Be generous.
They're going to help you plan at like you're going to need more than you actually do.
Always have to invest more. He said, what are you going to need millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars when you're 70?
Yeah.
He goes, wouldn't you rather look back and say, I gave millions and millions or however hundreds of thousands of dollars to the kingdom of God?
A little bit of that American dream thing, the way the whole system is all set up for upward mobility and to have as much as possible even when you're gone. There's a little bit of that's like, is that going to help the next generation or potentially hamper the generation that inherits it?
And there's a great book called Die with Zero that I'd recommend people. And the whole premise is basically that yes, you need a certain amount. Financial advisor is great. I have one. So I'm not putting those down.
Yeah.
You need a certain amount for to live and retire off of.
Yeah, there's a stewardship principle. We're not saying be reckless and be unwise.
Yes. Yeah. But he said what you overestimate is what you'll actually be able to do and want to do when you're in retirement. He's like, when you're 75, you're not going to want to go climb Mount Everest. So use that money and invest it now. And he said the same thing with charitable giving and giving money to your kids. If you're in your 50s and 60s and you have kids that are just getting started, he said, man, help them buy a house. Don't wait till you die and they're 60 years old and don't need your money anymore. Help them.
You can be there to enjoy it as well.
Yes.
You can enjoy that blessing of giving and not just receiving.
Yeah, Scott Stevens told me something a few years ago that really ministered to me. He's the executive pastor of generosity and growth, right? Expansion. Yes. I knew it was one of those words. Yes.
Or development. I don't know what the title is. He changes it. He grows it every time he says that thing.
We love you, Scott.
Scott's the best.
But he said, man, when your kids are like out of the house, I view my job now as to help them make their dreams come true. And I thought, okay, that's my vision.
And that's a vision worth living towards.
Come on. That fired me. I'm living toward it now.
That feels like joy.
Yes.
Along that path. What do you want to do when you retire? Do you want to go to like Yellowstone and see salt formations? Is that something on your bucket list?
I want to see every night. I do have a huge bucket list, which we won't get into. But Dave, if you ever travel with Dave, don't go on a hike with him where there's repetitive formations. We went to Yellowstone together, and I don't even know what those things are called.
I don't either.
But basically, we got like 20 feet into our hike, and Dave's like, "Yeah, I've seen it. I can go back to the car." I'm like, "What? We just started."
Everyone was so excited. I'm like, "Guys, they all look the same. What are we doing?" Like,
so every couple of months, I just send a picture to Dave via text of him with the formations behind him. It's beautiful.
Doug got really sick on one of those trips, and sometimes I'll return the favor. He fell asleep in the airport. I just have this photo of him sleeping in an airport. It's fun. So, hey, I appreciate you big time. Thanks for what you do in my life as a mentor, as a wise example, as a safe place to experience accountability. And then also thanks for what you and Laura do for the kingdom, through Light of Life, through the church, through the local church, for pastors here in ministry. Pittsburgh's a better place, Doug, because you're here and because you're prioritizing God's kingdom. Thanks so much for helping all of us think differently about marriage and generosity.
Yeah.
Hey, we'll see you next time. 167 Podcast. Thanks, everybody.
Hey, leader, thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Dave D'Angelo. I hope that you enjoyed it as much as we did. And if you want to get links to anything that we discussed, you can find those in the show notes. I also want to give a special shout out to our sponsor, Andosha Marketing Solutions. They are the producers of this podcast. And if your organization has any needs in marketing, I highly recommend their services. You can visit them at andosha.com. That's ANDOCIA.com. And instead of a quote today, I actually want to recommend a book that I've been listening to and loving, and it's Mel Robbins' new book called The Let Them Theory. I think it's absolutely incredible. I think everyone needs to read it. I highly encourage you to listen to it. I love Mel Robbins' voice, and so I've really, really enjoyed it. I'm going to go through it again. The Let Them Theory. Go out and get it now. Well, hey, that's going to wrap up today's episode. And as always, leaders, remember this. Don't quit. Keep leading. The world desperately needs your leadership. Until next time, we'll talk to you next episode.